Shalom, shalom, Dr.
Well, Mazel
Booker.
Tov. How's grandfather?
Oh, wow, that's like last week's news. So much has changed. Everything, we were talking about everything. But yes, we had a granddaughter, and our fifth grandchild is our first granddaughter.
Wow,
And
awesome.
quite awesome. That is absolutely the right word.
The
And she has a name.
okay.
Her name is Roni Leah.
And what does that mean?
So Leah, of course, very interesting. Leah, of course, is the name of one of our four matriarchs.
Correct.
And Roni means sing and be happy, or something like that. It's there might be a word, a specific English word that translates from the word Roni but I haven't found it yet.
Celebrate.
There's certainly other words to for celebrate.
Rejoice. Maybe
Yeah,
rejoice.
rejoice. Yeah, I think rejoice is a good one. I'll use that. I'll think of you when I remember to use that word. When
Yeah,
people ask me what does
absolutely.
Roni mean.
Well, the human birth is such a miracle, and every time there's a newborn, it just reminds you of the incredible miracle of birth. Your granddaughter is 1 in 400 trillion. Did you know that?
She's only one as far as I'm concerned.
1 in 400 trillion.
400 trillion people have ever been born in the history of the world.
No, the probability that she was born who she is 1 in 400 trillion.
How do you get to that number?
I didn't think you would ever ask. Well, I had something here I wanted to read to you about that, since you have the new granddaughter. Just a couple of paragraphs here. This little document is called Ancestral Mathematics, and subtitled, "In order to be born, you needed 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 second great-parents, 32 third great-grandparents, 64, then all the way down to 2,048 ninth great-grandparents."
In other words, 9 generations back, you have over 2,000 antecedents.
For you to be born today from 12 previous generations, you needed a total of 4,094 ancestors over the last 40 years. Now I want to read.
No, not 40 years.
400, I'm sorry. That's 400 years. So here's another little thing that Peggy and I figured out. The probability of any of us being born us and not being born somebody else. Listen to this. 1 in 400 trillion. Now, how do we come up with this number? The number is determined by figuring the probability. I used to teach statistics, so I know something about that. That of all the possible connections of your male.
I just want to tell you that there's one chance in 400 trillion that I'm going to understand something about all these statistics. Let me just say it.
Yes. The probability that of all the possible connections of your male and female ancestors, they just happen to meet each other. They just happen to go on a date or connect somewhere. They just happen to like each other or needed each other. Just happen to perhaps stir up romantic hormones with electrical currents and chemical reactions in the brain.
That's what that stuff is. I was wondering.
I'm not through yet. Just happen to get married and just happen to have the right sperm connected to the right egg, having children, and then repeating the process until you're born. Furthermore, in every step of your ancestry, the probability of the right sperm meeting the right egg so that the exact right ancestor would be created that would end up creating you
Right.
is a number so large we can't even comprehend it. If all of this doesn't work, your parents may have a baby, but it would not be you. It would be a different you. Isn't that amazing? That is so amazing.
I didn't catch where the 400 trillion comes out, but you could have kept on talking about all different other types of things. Like if it wouldn't have, like I was born in September. If my parents hadn't conceived me in September, but in October, then I would have been somebody different for sure.
Well, absolutely. And so we are uniquely made in the image of God. Absolutely. There's not a one of us is a, I know they're identical twins, but even identical twins, they have different personalities, you know. So, I don't know what that is. Let me put this on pause.
Sure, go ahead.
Get all these calls, as you know. So
I
just wanted to share.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share that with you so you can appreciate your granddaughter maybe even more.
That is a tall order for me to appreciate her even more than I already appreciate her.
The wonder and awe of birth, human birth, is the point. Absolutely.
Okay.
So are the new parents happy and healthy? And
of course, well, they're certainly happy and they're healthy. I understood. I'm just the father. I'm Bichlal, the grandfather. So what do I know? But I understood that she might have been a little bit yellow. Have you ever heard of a yellow baby?
Yes.
So we Jews hear about it often because if the baby boy is yellow, I believe that the phrase that's the more scientific phrase is jaundice. Yes. Jaundice sounds a lot more dangerous than yellow. But if the baby is yellow, then the ritual circumciser says, no, we can't circumcise this baby. He's yellow. So you wait a few days, and he stops being yellow. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you put him under a solar light. I don't know, something like that. Until you feed him a few drops of vitamin D. I don't know what you do to the baby. But listen, I actually, my son was yellow, and so he was not circumcised on the 8th day. That would be a very interesting trivia question for my family WhatsApp group. Most boys are circumcised on the 8th day. What day were Akiva and Chaim Tzvi each circumcised on? I wonder if anybody would know besides Deborah. Anyhow, evidently, my granddaughter, Roni Leah, was also jaundiced, but I didn't notice it, and it didn't really make that much of a difference because you just keep on feeding her, and you know, it's not that there's any problem health-wise. It's just that you shouldn't circumcise him when he's doing it. That's all.
They usually get a little mix of vitamins and they grow right out of it, you know.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Now, have you ever considered that? I'm sure my good biblical friend, you're familiar with the concept and the ritual of circumcision that the Bible talks about at the 8th day. But have you ever considered? First of all, I'm sure that you've considered the Jews continue to circumcise their children every generation from Abraham till today. But have you ever thought to consider if a baby is not healthy, what are you supposed to do?
L'chaim, to save the life.
Of course.
You do what you can do.
There is a verse. There is a verse in the Bible. Let me find it 1 second. Meanwhile, please play that Jeopardy music. The verse, come on, where is it? Here. Vaikra Yud Chet. Hey, let me find that. 1 second. Vaikra Yud Chet. Hey. Here, let me show you as I'm looking for it. Tanakh Vaikra is
Here we go, Leviticus.
Yud Chet. Okay. So the fifth verse says, "You shall keep my laws and my rules, by the pursuit of which human beings shall live. I am God." Yes?
Absolutely.
This is it's a pretty important verse.
Of course.
And now I will try to translate it myself. And you will keep my rules and my laws, that or every man who does them shall live with them, shall live by them, shall live in them, or shall live simply if they keep them. So so first of all, a very interesting. I noticed something quite interesting. If you haven't until now, this verse, it says, "You shall keep my laws, that man shall live by them." Of course, man here meaning man and woman, but it doesn't seem to mean only the children of Israel. It seems that every single human should live by those laws. Does it look like that to you?
The English says human beings.
Yeah.
Well,
now anyway, the midrash. We'll get back to that maybe. The midrash is Asher yaseh otam ha'adam v'chai behem, that the man shall do them, i.e., the laws, and live by them. So, what is the famous understanding? They should live by them, but not die by them. In other words, if by observing any one of these commandments, be it a positive commandment, in other words, a commandment that you are required to do, like, for example, I don't know, what's your favorite commandment? To bring some sort of an offering, I don't know. Or a negative commandment, thou shalt not light fire on the Sabbath. So all of those things you should do if you don't die because of them. But if they bring you to a fear of death, of potential dying, if there's danger of death, then you are patur. You are not required to do them. That is how the sages understood this verse. What do you think of that?
I think it's very good. I think Yeshua must have understood it that way too, because he did a lot of things that seemed to upset the traditions of the elders of his day. But he would say, "Well, how much if you have your sheep falls into the pit on the Shabbat, are you going to go get it out? How much more valuable is a human than a sheep?" So to life, l'chaim, it's a very important concept that the world has gotten from the Jewish people. And I like the way this says it in the English, by which human beings shall live, because God's, I'll use the word principles or instructions, his teachings in the Hebrew Bible are for our well-being.
Of course.
Nationally and individually or personally.
Mm-hmm.
So what my view is to try to separate the truth of the concept from the culture in which they were practiced, because we don't have that culture anymore, but the truth of it is still with us.
Which culture are you talking about?
Of the Bible.
I would say that there are parts of the lifestyle and culture of the Bible that we don't have anymore, but I feel that I'm doing my best to live in many aspects of the same culture of the Bible, at least as far as I understand it.
Oh, I understand.
In other words, I might not wear the kind of jabalia, the kind of robe that they wore in the desert, but I'm wearing the four-cornered garment that they wore in the desert.
I understand.
Maybe it's not exactly the same style. Maybe it's not created. It's obviously not created the same way. My garment was probably made with some sort of a cotton gin and some sort of a machine that people. But the same threads that I'm wearing, tying to the four corners of my garment, I believe they're the same ones that were worn in the desert.
Now I need to tease you a little bit. Are you wearing a blue seat or a white one?
I'm wearing a blue one. There it is. Can you see that? Can you see the blue?
Well, I see it. It looks just like the one I have.
Looks might be deceiving, my friend.
Did you get that out of my closet?
When I came to visit you in Houston, you went to the bathroom for a minute. I rummaged through to see if I could save some money, get my tzitzit from you instead of from the store.
Yeah, and I did my own winding and wrapping and knotting of I have several, but one of them I did that just to see how to do it, and learn how to do it. I don't remember every detail of everything I've ever done in my life, but I did learn how to do it.
That's what you're married for. If you need somebody to remember every detail of what you've ever done in your life.
Oh, absolutely. God remembers, doesn't remember anymore, but the wives do. So, amen. I love that. So I'm just so happy for you and your family. Such a blessing.
I wanted to ask where you got your blue strings from.
Maybe from Israel. I really don't remember. I may have ordered them from a Jewish site. It's been a long time ago, 30 years ago. But when I was learning these things, I wanted to immerse myself in the concept of it and learn more about it. Yeshua, of course, wore that himself as well, and so you're trying to learn more about your Jewishness of your faith.
It's fascinating. I'll tell you, it's these blue threads for me are one of my special favorite commandments.
Well, then, such they should be. Absolutely.
No, not because I'm Jewish, because I'm me. You remember one of those 400 trillion? It's because my friends, my personal neighbors and friends from Ma'ale Adumim, together with some of their friends from Efrat and maybe a few others, they came across this commandment in the Bible that says you should put a blue thread on your garments. The problem was that nobody was wearing this blue thread for hundreds and hundreds of years.
I know.
And so they went out and they said, what is going on here? So they went out and started researching it, looking and looking and looking. Now it happens to be that the current president of Israel, his name is Yitzhak Herzog. His father, Chaim Herzog, was also a president of Israel, sort of like John Adams and John Quincy Adams.
Very good, very good.
But that's Yitzhak and John and Chaim. Chaim's father, Yitzhak's grandfather, whose name also was Yitzhak Isaac, he was the first chief rabbi of the state of Israel. It's quite an illustrious family. Now, I bring this up because that Rabbi Herzog, amongst numerous other very important things that he did, he he got a doctorate. He actually, I think he was born, I don't know if he was born in Ireland, but he was the chief rabbi of Ireland, before he moved to Israel and became the chief rabbi of Israel. Anyway, he got a doctorate, I'm not sure where, but his doctorate was about the blue dye of the threads of the tzitzit. It sounds like you know that.
Very interesting.
But anyway, even though he wrote a doctorate about it, probably in the 30s, or maybe the 40s, it still was not really followed so much. There was also another rabbi. His name, I don't remember his name, but he came from a place called Rzhin, like RZHN or something like that. And he was a big rabbi, but only for his community, his followers. And he decided that he figured out what the right blue was. So he had Rabbi Herzog, the Rzhiner, and then my friend from Ale Adumim and his friends, they did some scientific research and they came up with what they believe, and they're very convincing, is the actual blue dye that is used for the thread. So what is going on now is that I am wearing the blue thread that I believe is the same blue thread that was worn in the time of King David and many others. And I believe that it only could have happened in our generation. So we are living in a very special generation.
Absolutely. So many. Well, you know, it had to, in Zechariah, looking at the times of Messiah, our view, you know, his return, the return of the Messiah, of course,
okay,
is that 10 from every nation, a tithe from every nation, would want to take hold of the tzitzit of a Jewish man and say, we want to go with you, for we see that God is with you. But I believe that would have to be a blue tzitzit dye.
So, we agree with that 100%. That's Zechariah 8:23.
So everything has to be restored, such as Ben Yehuda with Hebrew, the blue tzitzit, the Israel restored as a nation, Hebrew restored. Everything has to be restored to the way it was in Bible times. And people like me see all of this happening and want to be part of it.
That's right.
In the way that we can, you know. So we want to be part of the process of redemption, as you might call it.
I'm really not surprised. I'm more surprised at the people who aren't interested in that.
Well, it's a long journey. It's a long journey. One of our dear rabbi friends in Houston that we worked with was so kind to us. Said, Richard, what you and Peggy are trying to do in your own lifetime, you're trying to undo 2,000 years of separation. This is going to have to be your grandchildren that will do what you're trying to do, you know. So you can't undo so much in your own life, but what you can do is you can get it started and pass it down to the next generation, and they can move it forward to the next generation, and eventually it will happen.
Okay,
So
I agree with what you just said. I disagree with what that rabbi said, because I think that and of course I'll explain why, because verses popped into my head, a famous verse that I have no idea where it's from because I only know it from the song. 1 second, let me try to find it. 1 second, let me help you show the words that I'm writing down over here. Here is the words in Hebrew. Bi'ita achishena. It's in Isaiah 60:22. Second, Tanakh, Isaiah. Where'd you go, Isaiah?
getting close. Isaiah, there you go.
60:22. Hakatan yele elef. The small one will be like 1,000. Vatseir legoy atzum, and the young one will be like a giant nation. Ani Adonai, I am the Lord. Bi'ita achishena. In its time, I will make it come quickly.
Well,
now, what does that mean? The sages say, I don't understand. If it's going to happen in its time, then it'll happen in its time. If he's going to make it come quicker, then it's going to come quicker. Is it going to come on time or is it going to come quicker? So the answer is, when its time will come, it will be coming quicker. And that is what we're seeing. It's sort of like what is that called? A graph curve, a curve going up, 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 up. And so that is where that rabbi got it wrong. Because we are now in Be'ita, we are in the time, and things are happening much, much, much faster, at a much faster pace.
I don't think he got it wrong necessarily, because I think it's a process, because God has let Peggy and I live long enough to see some amazing fruit from the things he's called us to do. And many people don't have the blessing of living long enough to see the results of their life's work. And so there are many things happening today with, like you and I are talking here. 30 years ago, this couldn't have taken place probably. And so many things are going on between Christians and Jews and Israel that 40 years ago, 50 years ago, these things just couldn't have happened.
Exactly.
But we're living in the time to favor Zion, Psalm 102. Amen. And so the full fruit of it probably will not be in my lifetime, but that doesn't matter. We've helped to plant the seed and water the seed, and we see fruit from all over the world happening. And so I just got an email from one of our students in Malaysia who was telling me she teaches all of our Hebraic things from my classes all over Malaysia. Can you think? I mean, this is hard to comprehend, you know. So she saw some of my books in one of the very few Christian bookstores in Malaysia. These things are happening all over the world. 30 years ago, this could not have happened. So
that's nothing compared to the internet today.
Well, of course, we have the internet, so I can see your beautiful face all the time. I would never have known what you look like otherwise. Just a voice crying in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord. Absolutely. So thank God for technology. We can use it for good or for evil, and for whatever evil there is, there's good out there for it too. So we're using it for good.
I was going to bring up another source from what you mentioned. You said that I might not complete the work, but my son or my children or my next generation, something like that. So that brought me to mind this verse. This already is not a verse from the Bible. It is a verse from that famous work that I've been mentioning before, and that is Pirkei Avot, chapter 2, verse Mishnah 16. Let's find it over here. 1 second. Mishnah. Scroll down here a bit. Get to the end of here. Pirkei Avot 2:16. 16, I said. Yes. He would say, it is not upon you to complete the work,
right?
But you are not free to not take care of it at all, nor are you at liberty to neglect it.
Right, I'm familiar with that verse.
Exactly.
That statement, right. Well, you know, in the Hebrew Bible, God says, teach this to your children and your children to your children. So he's saying, pass it on.
Yeah.
Pass it down to the next generation. So in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul told his disciple Timothy to find a few faithful who can teach others. So we always have a responsibility to live our lives for the next generation, basically.
Right.
So we might plant a tree and never see anything from it, but that doesn't matter. If the children and grandchildren can enjoy it, that's the point.
You know, I don't know, every time you say a word like that and it says, oh, I know a phrase from the Bible or a phrase from the sages, I don't know if you're thinking of it or not. You were just talking now about planting a tree that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will benefit from. What were you thinking of when you used that phrase?
I'm thinking of what you're thinking of. I can't remember his name that gave that teaching, but you know him real well.
Let's see. You want to give me a second here? I know him real well, but it's a little longer than a few words in a verse. That whole story.
I know. It's a nice story. Yeah, I know. I've read all those stories. I don't remember every detail of them, but I remember the concept, of course. And of course, I've lived long enough and worked with enough people to understand that wisdom myself. So sometimes I will comment about issues that are similar in the history of people we've read about ourselves. But if you have any mind to think about these issues, you'll come up with the same conclusions.
Yes. Well, meanwhile, I've found it. 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is this guy. Let's see if we can find him over here.
Okay.
Gidon Ariel. Here he is. Not. One second. Here we are, I think. Let's find, oh, interestingly, it seems to be in time. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not sharing the screen. I apologize.
That's okay. We know what we're talking about.
Here we seem to be. Let's see what we got. Choni, it says here, Onias, the circle drawer.
Oh yeah, okay, right.
In Hebrew, we call him Choni.
Yeah, Honi the circle drawer. I know who he is, yeah.
He lived at a time near the destruction of the temple. He went to the mountain with his workers. While he was there, it started to rain. He went into a cave, and while he was sitting down, he slumbered and fell asleep. He stayed in his sleep for 70 years. And while the temple was destroyed and rebuilt, but we're missing the earlier part of this, I thought.
Yeah, Honi the circle drawer. I know. I've taught on him many times, of course.
1 second. We must be.
I don't
know. The most important part is here. The most important part is missing over here. 1 second, because I'm looking where it says over here. He left the cave and found the world changed. At a place where there were vineyards, there were olive trees. Where there were olive trees, there was a field. He said, "What's going on?" He said, "Don't you know?" And anyway, this is not the source that I was looking to see.
I don't remember Honi being the guy that told the little story that we're thinking about. It could be, though. I thought it was somebody else.
I'll try to say it off the top of my head. He saw an old man planting a carob tree. He said, "Well, don't you know it takes 70 years for a carob tree to grow?" He said, "Well, I came here and I found carob trees already planted and giving their fruit. So they were at least 70 years old. So somebody planted them 70 years old, 7 years ago for me. So I'm planting for my great grandchildren that'll come here 70 years from now."
Of course. And we planted trees in Israel with the same idea in mind, of course.
Now, again, we have to find the source of that. 1 second.
I'm sorry, I can't remember it right off. I remember the
One
story
second.
well, but I don't remember.
Yeah, but you know me, I gotta find the source.
I just don't remember. I've got it in one of my books right here, you know.
This is it. It's not, it's in Ta'anit Kaf Gimel Amud Aleph. Ta'anit, one second. It's not in Jerusalem Ta'anit. It is in here at the Talmud. Ta'anit Kaf Gimel. One second. Kaf Gimel Amud Aleph. Here we are. The story of Honi Magil. That was the first story. There's a second story about him and a third story about him. One second. Here we are. Here is a nice one. Rabbi Yochanan said, all the days of the life of the righteous man, Choni Magel, he was distressed over the meaning of the verse, a song of ascents. When the Lord brought back those who returned to Zion, we were like those who dream. So the thing is, though, that it took 70 years for the people to come back to Israel. So he says, it's impossible that somebody can sleep and dream for 70 years? So one day, this Choni was walking along a road, and he saw a certain man planting a carrot tree.
Okay, all right, right.
We get the idea. Okay, we won't go in. So that this is pretty much what I said, and that is what happened. Okay, so it's in the Babylonian Talmud, page 23, side 1.
Okay. So the lesson is we should have a long-term view of life and not just look for tomorrow.
Not look only for tomorrow, not only look for ourselves. Think of future generations.
Well, that's my point. Absolutely. So it's a blessing to see how we can impact the future in a positive way.
Yeah, similar, we're still coming around full circle from the beginning of this talk, how my granddaughter is 1 in 400 trillion.
Right.
And that is exactly how the requirement of her to impact the world. And right. Each and every one of us. The world is not complete unless every one of those 400 billion, trillion, million, gazillion people do all the 100 kajillion things that they are required to do. And that is every person's story helps to complete the beautiful mosaic, which is God's tremendously greatest story ever told from the beginning of time till the end of time.
Well, we know God has a sense of humor. All we have to do is look in the mirror, right?
Anyway,
yeah.
So tell me, how are you doing?
Oh, we're hanging in there. Peggy's got not doing real well, so we've got another visit to the pain management doctor this week to see if he feels that he can give her another injection. So we'll just have to see how it goes, Okay,
we're praying for you.
Thank you.
And I see that you got a new pair of glasses, I think.
Well, I've had these. Well, I don't know where I found these. They were around here somewhere. The others, the screw came out of here, and so this came off. So I don't know where. I'm just wearing whatever's around here. Let me I don't know what is going on here.
I think they're trying to tell you that you won the lottery.
Well, I won the lottery when I met Peggy.
That's right. No need to tell me anymore. Lightning doesn't strike twice.
So we appreciate your prayers. We're kind of struggling a little bit with all that right now, but God is faithful, and we have friends who are having so much more serious health issues than we're having. So we try to keep everything in perspective.
Yes.
One of our dear IHCS Institute for Great Christian Studies graduates and teachers supposed to have been teaching one of our courses this semester, is in serious condition with rapidly growing cancer, and we really need. Yeah, so if Lisa comes to your mind, we'd appreciate you praying for Lisa. She needs the prayers a lot more than we do. A beautiful soul who loves God, loves people, a young Zionist Christian woman. We need God to help her.
Amen. Where does she live?
McKinney.
What is her last name, may I ask?
Depew.
Oh my gosh, I know her.
Yes.
I'll reach out and express my my prayers to her friends or to her if I can get through to her.
Yeah, she and her husband David.
David, right?
And so she needs a miracle right away from God to help her. So it'd be great if you and your wife would pray for her.
We certainly will.
So we have friends who are in much more greater need than we are. So if you set your mind on others, you don't think about your own problems as much.
And it's a Jewish tradition that people who have problems, if they pray for others about those problems, they will be answered. More of a chance or something like that.
Well, that's right out of the New Testament too.
I don't know. Can't we find something that we disagree with for a change?
I'm sure we could, but we have different ways of interpreting the scriptures sometimes, but getting past those differences, the book tells the same story from cover to cover.
Amen.
It's the same story. So
you mentioned it before, the greatest story ever told from the beginning of time till the end of time.
I shock my Christian students and minister friends sometime by saying there's nothing new in the New Testament that's not already been written in the First Testament.
Right.
And they get all, what are you talking about? Because for us, Yeshua, of course, he didn't teach anything new. He was, in our view, was trying to clarify the original intent of some of the teachings from God that had been maybe smothered up a little bit with traditions, and trying to bring, we'd call him a revivalist.
I think you gotta, if I may, I think different. I disagree with you over there. I don't think it's because of the traditions that the original, or maybe I'll come around to saying the same word, but the smothering was not by the traditions. The smothering was done by the human foibles, the mistakes.
That's fair enough, of course.
We believe that the traditions, just like it says in the Bible, blue thread. So which blue thread are you talking about? So you have a tradition of this kind of blue thread from the Trumulus maximalist, I don't remember what it's called, some kind of a snail, and not from a plant.
I understand.
So other people say, "What do you care? It says blue thread." So, and not to mention other things that doesn't even say exactly what it's supposed to be. What is it? What is it supposed to mean? I think we might have discussed this before. Everybody says things. So we believe that there are. It's hard to translate Torah shebichtav and Torah shebal peh, the written Torah and the oral passed down part of the Torah. But that's what we believe in. Traditions, that's something else. So you're supposed to wear your tzitzit in your pants or outside your pants. Well, it depends on who you follow. There's a big difference between certain traditions, what's written in the Bible and what's not written in the Bible, but has the same value as written in the Bible. But what Jesus was complaining about, pardon the expression complaining, what he was shouting and tearing his hair out about was the improper behavior that people were behaving. But they were saying that's less important than the fact that I have the most expensive tzitzit. No. Get your priorities right. Get your values right. So he wasn't against the values. He was against the anti-values.
I can't disagree with you a bit.
Except that too many Christians, I think, misunderstand that, and they say, oh, those rabbinic Jews, everything about them is wrong, and Jesus is coming to show something new and different and right. No, he was just saying the right way to do things that had been smothered not by the true traditions, but by the improper behaviors and the improper anti-values. Simple as that. If people would only understand that, there would be no difference between Christians and Jews.
I have an Israeli tour guide friend that we've known and loved since the mid-'80s. And out of her own admission, she was a secular Israeli woman. And she spent 2 weeks with us on the bus.
Wow.
And of course, as our tour guide, and her observations were without the traditions, not the good ones, but the ones that you're talking about, the ones that are fallible human beings put on people. Without those added, and this is a secular Jewish woman who probably hadn't had too many spiritual thoughts in her life, I said, without these human brain developed traditions that aren't necessarily spiritual, but legalistic control over people's behavior, without those added to Judaism and without the ones that Christianity has added, you take those away, we have the same story. Now,
Okay.
this is a secular Israeli woman who somehow had this revelation. And she also said, this blew me away. Peggy and I were talking about our friend yesterday because we love her so much all these years. Again, just being with us on that bus, she said, I see that she used the word religion, which is not a word we use, but that was her true religion, is not a matter of going to the synagogue or the church, but it's a matter of the heart. Wow. How can you argue with that? It's the heart. So Yeshua was looking at the heart. He was looking at the heart. Why do you do things? The motives you have. Is it pure unconditional love for people? Are you trying to get something from them? Are you trying to control them? Are you trying to take advantage of them? You can do many good mitzvahs, but for the wrong reasons.
Exactly.
He's looking at the heart.
Yes. Okay, well, on that beautiful word of the heart.
The heart.
I'll just tell you that Bezrat Hashem, I hope you've seen it. We're coming up on the Shavuot Symposium in about 3 weeks.
Oh boy, that'll be a lot of fun.
Okay, so thanks for reminding me. I'll send you a preview link to it, and we'll be in touch about that. You and the 5 other scholars who will be appearing that day.
It'll be fun.
Shalom, shalom.
And Mazel Tov again on your grandchild.